From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. Today on the show, we have Marty Toma from Patio Masters and Denver Classic Broncos. And as always, I'm alongside my partner in crime, my co-host, Luigi, the Professor Rosa Bianca. What's going on, Lou?
Matty, good afternoon, buddy. This one's
Good
going to be
afternoon.
This
Matthew
one is
and
going
Luigi,
to be
the Professor.
This one's going to be a special one. You know,
Where's
Marty.
the Professor come from?
You want to grab that one, Lou?
I don't know. I think it's just my aptitude to kind of nerd everything up. Matt always gives me a question, and then I'll kind of give him like the etymology of the word, and I'm the idiot. When I was a little kid, I used to take apart radios and figure out how things work, and I think it just stuck with me. So
You still do that, just on a bigger scale, huh?
yeah. So Matt baptized me the Professor a long time ago, but I think really what it comes down to with our company.
Let's not be coy. He's a history buff, and I'll say, hey, Luigi, should we cross the road on the left side or the right side? I'll say, well, in 1972.
Well,
Guilty.
Matthew, it's worth noting that he's the only one. I know that your listeners can't see this, but he's the only one with a library of books behind him.
We call that casting.
Matt, when I came on camera, Matthew asked me, "Hey, are you in the bathroom?"
Again, we call that casting.
Gentlemen, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
But without further ado, let's give you a proper introduction. So Marty obviously is in the construction trade. And what I like about Marty is he's pivoted over and over and over again. And by pivoting over and over, he's figured it out. And he did something that is near and dear to my heart, is he found a passion and found a way to make money from his passion. And Marty, I'll be honest, I've always stayed away from making money from my passions because I felt that it would take the passion away from it and become a business. Yeah. So I think you have a lot to offer. We're going to pass the mic to you. Welcome to the Liquid Lunch Project. Have fun, buddy.
Well, I appreciate you having me. It's funny that you say that because, when you work in the contracting space, oftentimes your background is one of a contractor. You've done the work. You've mastered your trade, and you're through working for someone else. You're going to do it for yourself now. I didn't come from that background. I am not. I tell my customers, and not that I do a lot of customer-facing sales anymore, but I have a line that I use, which is, if I show up with my tools, you need to ask for your money back. Because I'm not the guy that builds it, but that's not why they're hiring me. So I came into this industry really from the sales end of it. That's what I've done my career. To give you a little background, when I'm old at this point, but out of college, my first position was with a software company. And I'll kind of tell you a funny story. We had, again, this is dating me, so forgive me, but you might not even, Matt, you might not even know what some of these things are. CD-ROMs. So
I'm not that far behind you, pal.
You just look a lot younger, So I went to work for a company called Digital Data Systems, and they had this revolutionary idea, which was to download the multiple listing service. So the data that realtors use, to download it onto a weekly CD-ROM and send that out to their subscriber list. The idea being that in those days, because this was pre smartphone, and it was everyone has a laptop on them, realtors would be driving down the street and their customer would notice they didn't stop at a particular house on the route to look at the house they were going to visit. And they'd say, well, how come we're not looking at that one? That one's nice. Well, the realtor wouldn't necessarily know why it wasn't on the list. Maybe it wasn't the right number of bedrooms. Maybe it wasn't the right number of bathrooms. Maybe it didn't have a fenced yard, whatever. So the realtor would have to, well, when we get back to the office, we'll look at that. Well, in the meantime, those people made note of the phone number they saw on that sign. So as soon as they part with their realtor, they're calling that agent who has that house listed to get in and also look at that house. So this company had the idea that instead of that they would put realtors in a better position by sending them a CD-ROM every week of all of the new listings. And you could search that CD-ROM by putting it into one of those little portable, it's kind of like what our, the first version of travel DVD players, right? Where the screen flipped up, you had a little keyboard and you would type in the address and it would spin the CD and pull up the information. It was, looking back, it was such rudimentary technology. It's funny, but really, we had a couple of years of success, and then that went down the drain because there was no pipeline of product after that, and that was about the time when smartphones and the Motorola Q, I remember, was that first smartphone I had, and then everyone started carrying laptops. So I left that. I went into lending. So I went into the finance world. Started out with a company called Household Finance Beneficial, the beneficial branch of Household Finance Corporation. Worked my way up there, went into mortgages, worked my way up there. At one point, the director of retail lending for one of the largest subprime lenders in the country. And all that ended in 2008. If you guys remember that.
Oh, we sure do. We sure remember 2008. Those were some dark times, but we actually we worked our way out of it, right?
Yeah.
And we're seeing it now.
Well, and that's what happened. Is literally my job. My wife and I were driving to our lake house. By the way, we had been together for 7 or 8 years. We weren't married yet, but we were driving to the lake house Labor Day weekend, and I got the call from the senior vice president. And he says, "Hey, Marty, how you doing?" I'm like, "I'm doing great. So when you come in to the office on Tuesday, we're closing down the company." So 2,200 employees let go literally over the Labor Day weekend, and it was my job to let everyone know they no longer had a job on Tuesday.
Wow.
And it wasn't, because if you remember what happened, obviously, is the secondary market quit buying mortgages. So it wasn't, you take $400 million you just lent out, you turn around to sell it to the secondary market. There's nobody there. There was nobody to give you $1 for it. So it wasn't like, hey, we're closing down the company and you're going to have a nice severance package. It was if you want your last paycheck, you will pack up the office building so that the moving company can come retrieve everything. So that was quite a shock. And so I ran away, for a couple of years. I went down to Mexico, lived down on the beach in Cabo San Lucas and drowned my sorrows for a couple of years. And that in and of itself is a story for probably another time. But I ran out of money and came back to the States, and I needed to get back into the earnings bracket that I was in, 2-3 years before that, back before 2008 happened. And a buddy of mine said, "Hey, I know a bunch of guys make good money in the construction and the remodeling business." And so I took a job with a $30 million remodeling company. Was there for about a year and a half. The CEO had left to start his own company. So after his non-compete expired, I went to work for him as his sales manager. And I took that company from 800,000 to 7 million in about 5 years. And at that point, I decided, I could do this on my own. And so my wife had been on me to move to Denver. And I joked that when people asked why we moved here, that it started to cost me more not to live in Denver because she would come out here for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, 4 or 5 times a year. So paying for hotels for her to stay when she would come out to visit. She just felt a calling to be out here. So we made the decision to move to Denver, and here we are. I started a full service remodeling company. When I moved here, we took that to about $10 million in 36 months. And we were primarily selling windows, decks, siding, decks, some outdoor stuff, exterior remodeling projects. And then I made the mistake of crossing over to the dark side and adding kitchens, baths, and basements to our product mix. And that was really, I was not equipped, let's put it that way. I was not equipped to manage well, like I said, we had millions of dollars of business on the books almost immediately. Kitchens, baths, and basements. We went from 3 install crews to 22 install crews practically overnight, and I just wasn't equipped to manage that sort of scale that quickly. All of the details, that are involved in doing something like a kitchen. Have you guys ever done a kitchen, like a major remodel project?
We have.
In your house?
Yep.
Yeah. How,
it's a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, somebody's coming into your house, they're tearing out the heart of your house. It takes longer than you think it should take. There's dirty, dust, dirt everywhere. People are traipsing in and out of your house. And
Marty, for those in our audience that are contemplating the GC route versus let's call it the specialist route, give us like the bird's eye view of the essential differences between being a generalist in the construction phase versus being a specialist, whether it's a tradesman, whether it's the guy that does gutters. Kind of give us your inside scoop.
So here's and that's exactly what happened to me. Is all of a sudden I became this full service construction company that was doing everything literally under the roof, right? And because I didn't come from the construction side of it, I've done enough of it. I mean, I've done about $30 million worth of remodeling at this point. So I know what it should look like, but I'm not the tradesman. And so what I found was you have this massive amount of detail, right? And let's just pick a kitchen, for instance. Wait a minute, I didn't want tan tile, I wanted beige tile, right? Okay, you picked that tile. Yeah, that's not the color it looked like when we picked it. So what color grout? What pattern of tile? What millions of options as it relates to countertop materials, cabinets, drawer pulls, sinks, the shape of the sink, the size of the sink, single bowl, two bowl, all of the things that go into the cabinet layouts. Are they going to have 2 shelves or 3? What kind of pullouts are they going to have? And then coordinating all the trades so that your electrician and your plumber show up when they're supposed to and get their work done so that your cabinet guys can get back in and do their work. It's a lot of detail. It's a lot of different directions. And for a lot of people, they're able to manage that huge amount of data coming at them on a day-to-day basis. I wasn't. So what I found was I had this stack. Let's say on the left, I had this stack of millions of dollars of kitchen, baths, and basement business, and it was all consuming. I was working more hours than I'd ever worked in my life. I couldn't take a vacation because if I did, the house of cards would start to crumble. There's always an emergency. There's always a plumbing leak. There's always the lights don't work in the other room when they go to turn the switch back on. There's always something happening. And then on the right side, that's the left side. On the right side, I have this stack of patio projects, which you can get in and get out in a matter of days, maybe a week, not 6 months like some kitchen projects take. Days. There's no upfront investment. I don't own cabinets, countertops, drawer pulls, tile. I don't have to own that stuff before we build it, right? There's no permits by and large, not much in the way of permits or zoning requirements. And there's lots of profit in them. So I've got this stack of business on the right, which quite honestly, we were ignoring because, they're not, you got a $90,000 kitchen remodel over here. You got a, $12,000 patio over here. You get focused on the big dollar jobs, but all of the profit we were giving up by not blowing through these patios, all of a sudden, I kind of had an awakening. And the more I started to look at it, the better it looked. The better it looked. So to bring all that into a summary for your question, Luigi, is for me, I have now made the conscious choice not to do the things people ask us to do that are outside of our scope. We have put the processes in place, the procedures in place. We're building out our custom CRM specifically for the way that our business runs. We're running like clockwork, churning millions of dollars of patios out at profit margins that are significantly easier to obtain than they were in the kitchen and bath business for me. So specialization for me has really allowed us to hit our stride, to the extent that, that light bulb went off. And I started to focus on that exact thing you said, which was specialization. And we'll be in the 8 figures in business within 36 months of opening the doors of the new business.
That's wonderful. For the retailers out there, you just had too many SKUs.
Yeah, that's a great way to
it was difficult to manage all those SKUs. So now that you've figured out specialization and you've got a really strong platform, what does Marty Toma 2.0 look like?
Well, as we put this together, I started to realize. So, one of the ways that we marketed it, as do I think many companies in the contracting space, is home shows, right? You put a booth at a home show and you meet customers, you sell projects. It occurred to me as I'm thinking this business model through that I don't see many concrete companies. I don't see many patio businesses at these home shows. Now, that doesn't mean concrete coating companies. You guys could both, put concrete coat. You want to put a fancy coating on your garage floor, right? Because I know you guys both. I think you drive a Ferrari, you drive a Lamborghini, right, Luigi? You guys want one of those checkerboard floor or mirrored? You want a mirrored floor so everybody can see underneath the car. So if you wanted to do that, you could.
You got Matt figured out to a T, but you missed me by a mile.
So if you wanted a concrete coating on your floor, you could Google that right now. You probably have 5 or 6 national franchises within a stone's throw of your house that do concrete coating. And I would see those companies. You want windows? Go to a home show. There's 20 windows retailers there, right? You want siding? There's 20 siding retailers. You want a roof? 300 roofing suppliers there, roofing contractors. But there weren't a lot of patio contractors. And specifically what we do, 80% of our business is concrete. The other 20% are pavers or then patio covers like a pergola, a roof, or an outdoor kitchen type area. So there weren't a lot of concrete companies. And it makes sense because one of the ways, and you guys probably know more about this than I do, I have taken a crash course on franchising over the course of the last year. But franchises, one of the ways they make their money outside of royalties is on the supply chain, right? So Domino's Pizza doesn't make money selling, Domino's corporate doesn't make money selling pizza. They make money selling pepperoni and pizza crust and pizza boxes and tomato sauce and all the things that the franchisee needs to run their operation. Well, there's not really a supply chain for concrete because by and large, you gotta mix it near where you're gonna pour it, right? So, I can't sell Matt down in Florida a concrete patio from Denver. Now, I could sell the coating he wants for his garage floor to a franchisee in Florida who could go to his house and do the concrete coating because I have some sort of proprietary blend of coating, but that doesn't really exist in the concrete business. So, so as I started to work this through, I thought, but you don't really need that because what concrete guys are good at is concrete. They're good at concrete. What they're not good at is everything else. Right? You guys work with a lot of small business owners, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that's true kind of across the board?
Oh, without a doubt, Marty, without a doubt. What we see every day is spot on what you just said. Is the contractor or the tradesman is really good at his craft, but he leaves to be desired when it comes to marketing, client relations. Have you ever, and this is not a personal commentary, but it's just a general stereotype. Have you ever heard a construction project be on time?
Yeah.
It's just the systems management in the construction world needs to be tweaked a bit.
Well, that's exactly what I thought is concrete guys that are good at concrete are great at concrete, but what they're not good at is the administrative, the CRM, the marketing, the accounting, the hiring, the sales training. The list goes on, like you just said. They're not good at a lot of the ancillary work that has to take place. And again, I think that's true, like you just said, for not only just for contractors, but for a lot of businesses, right? An accountant might be a great accountant, but he's a shitty marketer, right? So how does he grow his accounting business, And so I think what we're doing, what I'm doing is putting together a comprehensive back-end support structure that's unlike anything in our space. there are only a couple of nationwide concrete franchises, and only one whose name I could think of. So out of those only couple, 2 or 3 that exist, only one can I ever recall seeing. And it occurred to me, that probably it's for lack of a really tremendous back end support system for the franchisees. And so what we're going to do is we're going to turn our franchisees into concrete selling assassins.
Nice.
Who literally revolutionize the customer service end, the customer experience when it comes to doing concrete work. And we hear that every single day from our customers. Every single day we hear about how we are revolutionarily different than the other contractors they had talked to them about concrete.
So you guys are putting all the systems and processes in place for people so they don't make the same mistakes like you did in the general construction area, focusing just on concrete these days. But you said something earlier to me that actually struck me. You grew from 800, I think you said, to over 10 million in 36 months, right? So you grew very quickly. But there's a thing to growing too quick, and I think you realize that too, right? A lot of business owners that we deal with, they all want to bring on bigger jobs and have, more revenue coming in, but it's not necessarily the right revenue. Where you said you had a lot of high ticket dollar jobs, but the profit margins weren't as good as the lower dollar jobs, right? On the concrete side, correct?
Listen, I had a book of business that I think most upstart contractors like me would have died for. I mean, millions and millions of dollars of business on the books. I'll tell you, I am still building right now projects. If it tells you what a lousy production manager I was and we were as a company, I'm still building right now. I'm finishing up projects we wrote contracts for in 2019.
So what advice would you give to somebody in that GC world right now that's not moving to a specialized niche like you, that's looking to grow and take on these higher dollar value contracts and more jobs?
In hindsight, what I did wrong is not uncommon for guys that came like I did from the sales end of things, is that I made the mistake of feeling like sales could solve all problems. And in fact, that isn't what solves all problems. Selling a project at the right profit margin solves problems. And, I've heard this many times, Matthew, Luigi, I'm sure you've heard it and even probably given this advice. And that is, would you rather run a $2 million business where you make $1 million a year? Or would you rather run a $10 million business where you make $1 million a year? Let me tell you, the headaches are not worth it to say that you have that volume. So the advice I would give is you have to have rock solid production processes in place before you attempt to scale, because quite honestly, I did it the exact opposite. I just went out and sold a bunch of jobs and then tried to figure out how we were going to build them.
So the contracting world today is in, for small builders, remodelers that have been booking jobs for the last 18 months that are just starting out now, they're seeing increases in their material, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of contractors that we deal with are, in trouble because some of the jobs that they priced out 12 months ago, they're underwater now because they can't get the supplies, right? You mentioned windows. I know windows in Florida are very hard to come by right now. So do you see the materials leveling off and coming back down? And do you think the supply chain is going to get caught up to the amount of demand that's out there right now?
If you had talked to me 3 months ago, I would have said absolutely. But with the not that this isn't made as any kind of political comment, but with the potential for more restrictions again, I don't know. I could see that the price increases will hang on longer than we might have expected. Now, that having been said, that question is above my pay grade, as they say. I'm not a supply chain expert by any means. I'm kind of like most guys. I'm calling my suppliers and saying, hey, where's this product I was supposed to have in 2 weeks? It's been 12 weeks. Right. So I don't know what really we could surmise that factories had to work with reduced staff, and shipping companies had to work with reduced staff, and the distributors had to work with reduced staff. And so all of that caused a backlog. But again, it takes somebody way more knowledgeable than me probably to give an intelligent answer. I think we've seen a little bit of leveling off, at least what I feel now. Now, concrete itself hasn't experienced that kind of increase. Some of the ancillary materials, like the metal we use, the rebar, the steel, the price on that about doubled, but that's not a significant part of the cost of the project. So lumber, all the lumber we use for forming our projects, it's certainly, my guys were complaining that they needed more money because, those costs were going up for them.
Let's talk about that for a second. So when an unexpected cost arises like that, right? And your subcontractors need more money because their materials cost more, right? And it's not in the contract. Maybe you didn't have a escalation clause on materials. I'm sure you probably did. But how a lot of our clients and a lot of our listeners are in the contracting field, and they don't know how to address that with their customers. So can you give them some advice, a tip or two?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, right? Is having the guidance of contract professional, legal guidance as it relates to having an effective contract. In an effective contract, as you mentioned, you'd have a material escalation clause. Barring that, open and honest conversation. You have to make a decision, right? You've got two choices. Three choices. You abandon the project and refund the deposit if they gave you one, because you can't build it and make any money. You have an open and honest conversation with the customer. Hey, Mr. Customer, you chose me for all these reasons. I'm still that same guy, but because of these unexpected increase in costs, that same guy you want to hire for all the reasons that you love me can't afford to build the project at the price we talked about, but neither can anybody else. So you still want to use the same guy. I know that. Work with me on how we can address this cost differential. So an open and honest conversation in that regard. And then, of course, the third option is build the project and take your lumps. Sometimes in the world we live in today, it's unfortunate that doing the right thing can still get you a negative review, right? Because one of the right answers there is to tell the customer, I apologize, I can't build this project for what we agreed on because of these unforeseen price increases. I'm going to cancel the contract and give you back your deposit. So the customer at that point is whole. They don't feel like it though. They feel like you wasted all their time. They could have been working with somebody else. So they go online and they give you a 1-star review and say that you didn't communicate with them for 8 weeks, and then you reached out to them and told them you're canceling the contract. And they don't even mention that you gave them their money back.
Absolutely. The world of online reviews has changed the game in the landscape for almost every service trade-based company out there. How important was that for you guys, and what did you see? How do you counteract those negative reviews? And how important is it to you for you to get your clients to give you good reviews?
Well, I will tell you that when I had the full service operation running, I will tell you that I probably didn't pay as much attention. We relied on the fact that we delivered a great service. But with the new business, part of our model is, and part of the services we will provide our franchisees is the solicitation of those reviews. And so again, I know because when I read the reviews for our business, outside of one guy who gave us a 1-star review because we wouldn't meet with him without his wife being there because his wife works 100 hours a week. He never used us, gave us a 1-star review. Outside of him, we have pretty much 5-star reviews across the board. I think even given his 1-star, I think we still have like a 4.98. It's really, really important. I can't stress the importance. And when you get a negative review, you have to address it. I'll tell you, this, the negative, you could have 1,000 5-star reviews and 1-star review. And more people will read that 1-star review than will read the 1,000 5-star. And when you have that little button where they can say, was this review helpful? you'll have, a smattering of helpfuls on the 5-star reviews, and you'll have 500 people who said the 1-star review is helpful. For some reason, as a public, we love that negativity. So you have to respond to those. And when I responded to that guy who gave us a 1-star review without using us, I essentially said, hey, here's why we do that. Because we appreciate your wife's opinion. We don't want to we give you a price on the spot. We're one of the few companies that doesn't say, okay, we'll get back to you with the bid, with our quote. And then you never hear from us again. We do it on the spot while we're at your house. Well, to do that, we have to know exactly what you want to build. And the truth of the matter is, we all understand this. Our opinion isn't the important one in the house. I don't know if your house runs like mine, but my opinion is not the important one in my house. Because I love my life and appreciate good vibes in my house, I respect the fact that my opinion is not the important one.
Marty, let me ask you a question. Speaking of that, how in the world did your wife and you
marry me? Yeah.
Well, not marry you, but how did you get her to go all in on your side project, your business that you love, the Classic Broncos?
Build her a Bronco.
You gave her one, okay.
You just throw 60 or 70 grand at the problem, and it goes away.
Listen, I know you love patios too, but we're running out of time, and I definitely want to touch base on Denver Classic Broncos, because these Broncos, go to the website, check them out. They're really, really cool.
So I own Classic Broncos, 66 to 77 Broncos. And when I moved to Colorado, Denver is a fairly affluent market. So there are a lot of people who have classic cars here. And as I started doing some research to figure out where I could get my vehicles to their next stage in the production of these, in the restoration of these vehicles, all the names I was given for the top shops in town to get various kinds of work done, I would call and I'd say, hey, I want to bring my Bronco in. Here's what I need. I need body fitment, media blasting, paint, electrical. And they'd be like, okay, well, we're 24 months out. Okay, I'd call the next one, and same story. They're 36 months out. I call the next one. Well, you can bring it here. In fact, we require you to bring it here, because if the vehicle isn't here, then we don't block the time off for you. But the time we're blocking off for you is 24 months away. And so it occurred to me that everybody had that same problem. They were all backed up for years, which to me says there's a weakness, there's a hole in the marketplace that there's not enough people to do this kind of work to restore these old vehicles as they're, to satisfy the demand in the market. So one of the things I was a member of the Colorado Early Bronco Owners Group. And the guy that started the Colorado Early Bronco Owners Group is a mechanic by trade. In fact, he's kind of an all-around mechanic and body guy. And it had always been his dream to have a shop where he only worked on Broncos, right? I mean, that was his dream. And so I said, look, let's do it. You have the right spot in the demographic. And so there was a confluence of events that happened. One of the guys in the Bronco group had a private shop, and he was going to close down his private shop where he was leasing the space and move everything to his. He owns a manufacturing facility, so he was going to cordon off part of one of his warehouses and move his toys to his warehouse. And so it was perfect. I bought the shop, bought the equipment, and we fired everything up. And literally, I thought we'd turn out 5 Broncos our first year. We turned around 5 in our first 3 months.
Wow.
And we have since grown from 2,400 square feet to almost 7,000 square feet. We're now booked out about 2 years.
Good. Wow. So that 24 months is back in play, unless you want.
By the way, none of my personal Broncos have been worked on.
That's great. Hey, Marty, we really appreciate your time. Thanks for being here with us today. You're really a true entrepreneur, right? And you pivoted from mortgages into GC construction world. Now you're getting ready to start your own franchise model. My hat's off to you. And the fact that you're working on Broncos, I'm going to have to talk to you about getting one. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But I appreciate you being here. But before I let you run, we ask everybody on our show, right? One simple question. What does success mean to Marty Toma?
I for a long time struggled. I was successful outside, right? You look, the guy's got a business doing multiple 7 figures a year. He's living the dream, you know. He's got a great family. He lives in a perfect place, and he's got a thriving business. And I was working like a dog and not making the kind of money that I thought I should make. And I found a better way. And I now work less than I have ever. I take a vacation a month. I couldn't take a vacation for years. I take a vacation a month with my family. I get to see my girls that are 9 and 7 more than I ever have. I'm making more money than I ever have. And it all comes down to, and Luigi, you said it earlier, is finding a niche, specializing in that, mastering that niche. And what we have done with Patio Masters is develop a franchise that has a low startup cost, low operating overhead and staffing requirements. One guy can run this business up to about $4 million a year, make as much as $1 million a year off that. He's going to have to work all the time, you know, but if he wants to scale, he can add a couple sales guys and an admin assistant, run that up to 6 to 10 million, make $1 million or $2 million a year, and then really focus on being the CEO of his life, of his business. We're in a recession-resistant industry, strong profit margins, little competition, and like I said, a family-friendly work week. Nobody calls you at 9 o'clock at night to tell you that their concrete patio is leaking into their kitchen. And so I have figured it out. And man, my passion is sharing that with other people who are in the same spot I was in, banging their head against the wall, trying to figure out why this business that consumes them isn't giving them the lifestyle they thought they would have.
I love that, Marty. Why don't you tell the listeners where they can connect with you, find out more about Patio Masters, Denver Classic Broncos, and just Marty Toma himself?
Well, they certainly can email me anytime, marty@denverpatiomasters.com. They can call 855-CO-PATIO, 855-CO-PATIO. And, of course, on Facebook, Marty Toma, Toma.
All right. Hey, Marty, thanks for being here, man. We learned a lot. We appreciate your enthusiasm, everything that you got going on. We look forward to actually doing big things with you. Lou, it's been great, as always, to have you here. Guys, that's a wrap, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Project. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of The Liquid Lunch Project.